Good evening all. Tonight is January 9th, 6 o'clock tonight, and we're going to open our meeting. If we could open with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment of silence for all our first responders and those serving here and abroad. Okay, in accordance with Mass General Law, is anybody recording or taping the meeting besides LCAP? No? Thank you. Okay, we're up to public comments. Joe, could you come forward and please state your name and address, please?
Good evening. My name's Joe O'Cutie. I live at 215 Allen Street, obviously in town. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to take a few moments of your time. I know you've got a big agenda. The last couple of weeks, a situation occurred that I was concerned with, and another concern a couple of years ago, regarding our policy of communications from the town to the customers. I know that Tom is on the horn a lot of times addressing things that are going to happen, if there's a water break, etc. But the concern I had was with the trash pickup. And I couldn't call anyone because it was either, my day was Friday and it was going to be picked up Saturday. Town hall's closed, Sunday's closed. The next day was New Year's. It got picked up 4 days later. So I thought maybe it would happen, it would be corrected. And it happened again in January, New Year's Day. So I'm only bringing it here to share with you, not to complain. Somewhere along the line, maybe that has to be straightened out. That's internal business you have to do. The other one deals with charter. About a year and a half ago, I made a call to the local office and suggested someone tell me what's going on. My television didn't work at all. I had 2 TVs, they didn't work. And I got the response that it should. There's something not wrong. Maybe it's with your TVs or it's in the house. So I waited an hour and a half. I picked up the phone again, and I got connected to a service person out of the country. And this young lady said, give me a little time, I'll check it out. She came back 15 minutes later and said, someone hit a telephone pole in your area and knocked out the transformer. So I was a little confused. I was saying, wait a minute, I'm calling most likely Chicopee, and they don't have that information, and yet I get it out of another part of the world. I'd like to see some of these things cleaned up because I moved into town 4 or 5 years ago. I can't even remember now, I'm getting old. And I like the town. It's a nice town. And the better we can serve the people, better things are going to happen. So whoever's going to take this by the horns and straighten it out, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to answer the first part of this question?
That would be great.
All right, the first part is, Joe, I think the council's recognized the communication. In fact, it was so important that we created a subcommittee on that. And you're talking to the chair, he's your neighbor, me. And we're having another meeting this Thursday, and we're trying to work on ways to fix it. And one of the best ways, and I was trying to look at the terminology, it's called like a notification 911 or something of that nature. It's a new program that I'm encouraging everyone to sign up for. It's on the town's Facebook page and it's on the town's website. And when I signed up for it, it sent both to my phone and to my email the information about the trash being delayed. And I noticed on my street, which, you know, that nobody on my street knew about the trash being delayed. And one of the things I'm going to bring up on Thursday's subcommittee meeting is what percentage of the town is actually signed up. Now, the problem with communication is you have to find a vehicle to get, a vessel to do it. We're still using antiquated copper lines and things of that nature in this modern era that we live in. So this 911 notification system that the town has put in, I think is very underutilized. But when it does work, that information gets out. Now, I posted it on my personal Don Anderson Town Councilor page and put it out there for the 100 or something people that see it. But at the end of the day, that's not enough. We need to find strategies, and hence that's what our committee's trying to work on, of how to let people know to sign up for this. Because, like I said, we're still using older telephone, the only, copper lines and phones. And, you can't make Model T, buggy whips when the Model T's off the assembly line. So we have to move things to the current, communication needs. So we're on it. We're trying to work on it. But I encourage everybody to go to our town's website, and basically sign up for it. Because the more people sign up for it, the more of that information will hit you just as fast as it hits me, that the trash is delayed because of the storm, that the trash is delayed because of this. And that information can be, the more people that get it, the better it's for everybody in this town.
Thank you. I have to comment on that. You said something, and I've heard basically a little about that, but you said sign up, and then you used the word Facebook.
Well, that Facebook is one option, because Facebook's the main option is go to our town's
And
website.
it will stay in our town.
It's designed, you cherry pick
Right.
what information, let's say, part of the information is beneficial to our first responders. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, you have 2 dogs. The first responders may not cross-reference the licensed dogs that are in your house. But if they come in, pull you out, God forbid, in an emergency, by you signing up, they will know to look for, that's 2 more dogs are in this house. So it gives a lot of good information, and you choose what to put on there. I didn't choose to put a picture of myself on it, but I could have. I can go back and update it. So this is a brand new thing that I think is necessary to effectuate these kind of concerns about communication, because otherwise we're going to rely on phone calls, and people are going to think of telemarketers, they're going to do whatever, and they never reach their desired, or they get to the point where they're going, oh, geez, it's the town of East Long Meadow again, they're probably going to tell me something. Whereas you get a text message or an email message from the town of East Long Meadow with details to say, hey, the Friday pickup that should have been Saturday because of the holiday is now Monday. That was in there, okay? So,
I'm not into that program.
but hopefully you're on the internet, since you're on Charter, and you can be able to sign up for it. If not, just,
No, I
we'll get you on
understand
there.
what you're saying. I'm glad there's a program that will take care of this. My concerns is we have problems with communications, not in East Long Meadow, not Massett, in this country. I'm tired of robots. I'm tired of robot calls. Charter does have a process. I had to go through the FCC to get the information to get Charter to enable me to block the robot calls coming into my house.
but some of the robot calls might be perceived by Charter as important calls from the town of East Long Meadow that could be blocked, whereas this information,
I agree
we'll
with
get,
you.
yeah.
The chair of the Federal Communication Commission, about 3 months ago, put an article in the paper about his private phone in his office was roboted. A robot got into his private phone. No one's supposed to get into it. His comment was, I'll take care of this. I hope so.
I do too. I hate
Because
those
this
things
is
too.
ruining the communication process in our country. When we have to deal with people out of the country, and next thing you know, everything falls apart.
But Joe, like I said, the council recognized it, and it's not an easy task, because But we're working on it. We're gonna come up with some strategies.
I know you're gonna have a meeting Thursday, but I won't be able to
It's
attend
five,
that.
it's 5 to 6. It's gonna be a short, really efficient meeting, 5 to 6.
Will we be able to
at
get
the
more
library.
information out of this so that we can bring
Yeah.
us up into the 21st century? That's
One
all
of the,
I'm
one of
concerned
the items that we have here are subcommittee reports.
about. Okay.
Okay, we have two active subcommittees at the moment. And so if you're a regular viewer of ours, or go to YouTube and see our meetings, we'll give updates on it. But our meetings are all public, both the licensing subcommittee as well as media communications. And they're posted both on our town website as well as town hall. And they said the meeting I'm chairing will be this Thursday from 5 to 6 at the library.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Tom, any other comments? Tom? No? All good? Okay. Town manager report, obviously Denise is absent unless she's Skyping in. I think we'll bypass that. So, under approval of the minutes, I would put a motion to accept the open session minutes of the December 12th, 2017 Town Council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And to accept the executive session minutes of the December 12th, 2017 Town Council meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so under communications and correspondence, our subcommittee, social media communication, Don, I know you,
I'll pass. I think you already had a spoiler alert on my last response, so we're gonna have a meeting
Done.
this Thursday.
Just quick point of clarification for people that don't use social media. When they go on that system, they can simply sign up for just an email alert if they
Absolutely,
chose.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they
it's a lot.
don't have to have Facebook.
No. The Facebook was one of the methodologies to get it out to people, but all they need is to have internet access and go to the Town of East Long Meadows website, and it's there. There's a link to take care of that, to basically get you to sign up. But you don't have to have Facebook. Facebook is just another vehicle to make a small attempt to make it go viral. But it's based right out of our East Long Meadow website. It gives you the link to be able to sign up.
Thank you.
thanks, Don.
Yeah.
Licensing subcommittee report, Kathy, do you have anything for us?
Yes, thank you. The subcommittee, licensing subcommittee met this past Wednesday, January 3rd, for the purpose of looking over the schedule of fees for 2018 that we adopted back in early December. And the reason for that was we had been visited at an earlier council meeting by a number of licensees who expressed some comments about the late notice of the increase in fees. So we reconvened to look over their concerns. At that meeting, as Mr. Anderson has just said, all of our meetings, whether they be council or subcommittee, comply with open meeting law and are open to the public. So the three gentlemen who visited with us before joined us, and we had a very productive discussion about how down the road we can make an attempt as a new form of government to elicit feedback from our constituents and also provide a vehicle for opportunities for any voter or business person in the community to be able to be heard by the council. So we don't have a final mechanism in place, but we are all supportive of excuse me, some format like a roundtable discussion where the public would be invited and anybody can come visit with us. I'm envisioning maybe a venue like out here in the Council on Aging dining hall where it's more informal and it's more of a give and take conversation. It wouldn't be necessarily, wouldn't be a formal council meeting, but an opportunity for the council members to interact and get some feedback from the public. So we have brought that to the attention of the town manager, and the hope is that we can put something in place in the next 2 months to at least begin that attempt at quarterly roundtables. Later in our meeting, we discussed the feeling from the licensees that they would want to have us consider a tiered fee structure for the difference in the old fee and the new spread over 5 years. Some of the members of the subcommittee expressed some concerns about the legality of that, since the council took a vote and we really, from year to year, pursuant to the ABCC and chapter, I think it's 39 of the general laws, only have the purview to delineate fees on a year-to-year basis. So because none of us are lawyers, we have asked through the town manager to have council review that, as well as our director of finance. And we're awaiting both of those opinions, and we anticipate by the January 23rd meeting to have a definitive response from them and the direction on how to move forward. So we hope to be back on the agenda for, a final disposition on that.
Kathy, a quick question. So in the event that that's not possible, wouldn't it just be prudent to maybe readdress that and raise the fee a third and then readdress it next year?
It will depend on the advice of the director of finance, as well as the town's council. Yeah,
Very good.
I did get that.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So we're good with that, right? Okay, under, let's see, where are we?
Licensing matters.
So under licensing matters, we're looking for, our Masonic Temple's looking for a one-day liquor license, January 3rd, 2018, 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. for a fundraising event. And the motion would read to approve a one-day liquor license and waive the fee as requested by the applicant for the Masonic Temple, January 13th, 2018, from 5 to 12, a lecture fundraising event. Tom, I would just ask, was that applicant looking to have the fee waived?
Yes.
Okay.
Kathy and I were discussing this. We don't know what the fundraiser is, if it's an East Long Meadow fundraiser, it's for the school committee or for some other thing. So obviously nobody's here representing them today, but in the future we can maybe get a little bit more detail if they're asking for a fee waiver, because we have to make a decision. There's no detail on here as to what the event really is for.
Our discussion back in December, when we approved the increase in fees for one-day permits from $10 to $65, was that we would recommend the waiving of a fee if requested, depending on the nature of the organization, A, and B, the nature of the event. Now, we have some fraternal organizations in town and some religious organizations who have in the past asked for a waiver of the fee, and it was very clear by the nature of their fundraiser, they were, once they encumbered the money, were going to recycle it in some productive way to some manner or entity within the town. So at this point, I would suggest that we don't take action. When is the date of the?
13th.
Oh, we have to take action.
Well, I mean, they're regulars here. If we
Correct.
waive the fee and we
And then going forward,
The-
we'd have to be very clear. It says they're going to have a lecture, they're going to charge for entrance, and they're going to serve alcohol.
Yeah.
But we don't know what the lecture is.
Is the
Not that
lecture-
we have no interest or business in dictating any of these groups' affairs. But in order to waive the fee, we want to make sure that, it says fundraiser, but is it for the temple itself? Or is the monies garnered going to somehow benefit?
the lecture.
The sin is-
Yeah, for
yeah.
instance, yeah.
So-
The lecturer gets paid.
Since time is not our friend on this one, then I would move to go forward with, or second the motion. And going forward, we have to be a little more
Correct.
inquisitive of the applicant.
And Joe's point is a good one. In the future, under event and purpose, when we do get it initially, they do come in often.
Yes.
And however, to give more of a description, that's a good point. We'll make sure we find out more about the event.
All right, there's a.
We seconded, right?
Yes.
That's it, we're good.
We have to
You seconded,
vote on the
right?
motion.
No.
Kathy seconded.
Seconded,
Yeah.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion covers both the waiver of the fee and the approval.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, under licensing matters, Jim, perfect timing. I don't know if you have any update for us, so I'm going to refer this one to you on Pasquale's Restaurant, an update from town council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope you all have a good new year, and it's a good year for you going forward. Hope. Pasquale's is material that was submitted to the town clerk. That you may be aware, that license is not in operation at the present moment. And what we've received is a notice from the district court that there's been an attachment made of the license by a creditor directing the town not to transfer or otherwise limit the scope of the license as it exists without the authority of the court. So at this point, we have an order that if you were to determine at some point in the near future that the license is inactive and you wanted to take some future action, we would have to notify the court that it was our intent to do that by motion and argue our rights. I don't believe that the attachment of a license is actually the proper way to handle this, but it's been done, it's been approved by the court, so my suggestion would be that if you determine in the future that you wanted to take some action against this license, we should correct that situation with the court, but unless and until you determine that that's necessary, at this point, it's just a notice not to do anything with the license.
And how long is that in effect for?
I'm sorry, what?
How long is that in effect for?
It's going to be in effect until the court determines, until there's a trial on the issue of liability for the license holder to the plaintiff as to the amount of money that's owed. So it'll stay in place unless and until we do something. It could be as much as a year and a half. So that's well beyond the time frame that you might want to take some action on it. But at this point, if there's no action desired by the town, we don't have to do anything. But at some point, if we do want to do it, we're going to have to move forward.
Does that tie up the potential for the property to be sold as well?
It doesn't, I'm assuming, we received no notice, but I'm assuming that there also has been an attachment against the real estate. But that assumption is made upon the fact that the real estate is owned by the same entity that holds the license.
Ah,
And it may not be the same entity. It may be the individual rather than a corporation. And so maybe two separate actions, but my guess would be that there's a separate suit against the individual for the same amount, but I don't know that to be a fact.
thank you.
A question, Jim. If someone holds a liquor license and for whatever reason what's the period of time of a lack of use that it's considered abandoned, or a year and a half, you said, or
Well,
It's 9.
9 months?
there's an unwritten rule with the ABCC, the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, that a license that's inactive for 6 months is not a license that should be renewed in the upcoming year. So in that circumstance, that's what I'm saying, there may be some action you may want to take within that period of time, but there's no hard and fast rule,
Okay.
just a unwritten procedural rule that the ABCC looks at and says, you can't renew a license you shouldn't renew a license that's been inactive for, let's say, 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, I was just curious to see at what point does their license not become their license anymore, and it becomes an available license for us to issue to someone else.
Doesn't happen until there's some action taken by
Right,
the town.
court now just.
And that's about a year.
We would have to move to revoke the license or to revoke it from the current holder.
Got it.
Can we do that if there's kind of a stay put by the court on it?
For sale sign on it.
We would have to notify the court
of our intent and challenge the effectiveness of their attachment. And that's what I'm saying, unless there's a need to move forward, there's no need to spend municipal
Right.
finances to challenge it at this point in time. But at some point, it may become the case if it's not resolved before then.
Right, so essentially, unless we have potential licensee applicants lining up for that type of license, there's no reason for us to have an urgency?
Well, there's no
Move forward?
urgency, but when you get to the end of the year, if it's not resolved by, say, November or December of this year, and the renewal comes up, and someone files requesting a renewal of the license, then there would be an action where you'd want to resolve that
Right.
attachment, because you would be saying, I would advise you to say, we're not going to renew this license, it's been vacant, it's been not used for a year, and we're not going to continue to let a license just lay fallow for this period of time.
Makes sense.
Thanks.
So the tickler system is basically the end of the year for default, if you remember. You'll see, okay.
I think you're into this, at least the third quarter of this year before you really need to take any action with
Okay.
respect to this or consider it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Does anyone have anything under old business? Okay, under new business, we're looking for an amendment to Article 5. I believe, Tom, do you have a motion for that?
You went to number 2 instead of number 1.
It's been reversed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they revised that.
All right, this is the last one I printed. So
Yeah.
Sorry, no one made you aware of that, Paul.
that's okay.
Okay. The motion is that the town council vote to amend the traffic rules and orders as follows: by deleting all reference to the Board of Selectmen and inserting in place thereof town council. And by amending Article 5 by changing Section 1N, 51N to read 510. By adding a new section, 51N, that reads that there shall be no parking of any commercial vehicle on any street or highway or portion thereof located in a residential zoning district other than permitted under Section 110 for the purpose of making deliveries or pickup of items from a dwelling or constructing or making repairs to that dwelling for more than 1 hour without written approval from a police officer. And amending Appendix 5, Section 5-6, by adding at the end thereof, residential streets or highways. There shall be no parking of any commercial vehicle on any street or highway or portion thereof located in a residential zoning district other than permitted under Section 110 for the purpose of making deliveries or picking up of items from a dwelling or constructing or making repairs to a dwelling for more than 1 hour without written approval from a police officer. Streets and highways located in said residential zoning districts are shown on the map as Exhibit A and made part thereof by reference. And lastly, by amending Section 9, Appendix 9, by adding a new penalty charge for Code Number 23 for a fine in the amount of $50 for a violation on such.
Jim, I have a question. In regards to what the council was looking for, I just want to make sure it's phrased properly because you were able to put this together. But anyone that's parking, I mean, if a commercial vehicle were to show up at a residence and they were going to, let's just say, put a new roof on that residence, and they were going to be there for all of 8 hours, is what this saying that they're going to have to go to the police department and get written consent from the police department for that contractor to be able to park out in front of that house and work for an 8-hour duration?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to entertain that, and at the same token, I mean, you could have a cider there that's citing a home, and that cider could be there for 3 days, 3 days, 8 hours, 24 hours.
Well, the reason it was drafted that way was, my understanding was the concern that there were commercial vehicles being parked on the street, just being parked there, and there was no oversight. Without some type of approval as to a commercial vehicle being parked on the street by the police department to say, you're not in violation of the traffic rule and order as it stands, without their notification and approval, any commercial vehicle could be parked there and say, I'm here doing repairs, or I'm here for some other purpose, and it makes it unenforceable to a great degree, for the purpose that I understood that the subcommittee wanted to have addressed in that situation. That's why, and I admit to you that it's cumbersome and probably a pain in the neck for the police department to have to deal with that. But if you're going to have a commercial vehicle for an extended period of time parked in a residential area, they do. Yeah, they're going to have to go and get an approval. Say, I'm here to make a repair on Jim Donahue's house, and I'm fixing his plumbing, and we're going to be here for 7 hours. And so they know. So if somebody calls, it's not a violation. Otherwise, how are you going to enforce this if any commercial vehicle parks on the street for any period of time? They're always going to say they're doing some type of repair.
Well, I know where this has all come about. I mean, it's the numerous complaints that we've all received about people bringing vehicles home that actually use them for work, and some of these vehicles don't move if they're on call and they don't get called for 3 days. They're left there for 3 days. Becomes a nuisance with DPW with plowing. But on the other
That's not
side of it
this.
is,
That's not this, though. I mean, how are we going to get that message out to the vendor or the taxpayer if it's not a project that requires a permit being taken out? For instance, putting on an addition. If it's something simple as, you know, your hot water heater needs to be replaced because it broke, and the the vendor's there for 3 or 4 hours, who's gonna know enough to go to the police station and, you know?
Can't we
That's-
resolve, I mean, that's a great point. Can't we resolve that by putting a restriction on from 8 PM to 8 AM or something? Or, 7 AM or whatever is reasonable? But that just seems like a lot of work for an outside vendor that's not going to know the rule. They're not going to know that.
I drafted what I was told was the issue was trying to be addressed. And it's up to the council to determine how you want it to be done. I can reword this any way you want it done to meet the need that you need to have addressed. The concern and the practicality of the situation is that if, in reality, if I have a blocked sewer line and I call, I'll say Roto-Rooter because I'm a kid, that's what the commercial used to be, call Roto-Rooter to clean that out. That company has a business in Chicopee. They're going to come over here. They're not going to know that they need to go there. But if the police, unless someone calls and says that there's a problem, no one's going to go and cause any issue with this person. If they do cause an issue, then it's incumbent on the police to determine whether, in the first instance, they think it's an intentional violation and they want to issue a ticket, or they think it's an unintentional violation and say, you know what, we have a rule that says you can't do this. I want to give you a warning not to do it in the future. That's a function of the police making a determination as to how they want to enforce it. That's one way to do it. The other way is to say no commercial vehicles are allowed to be parked on the streets from, say, 6 PM to 6 AM, if that solves the situation.
I don't think
And-
we cover the offenders that we're dealing with right now, though.
As I say, even in that case, if I need Roto-Rooter, to use your example, I have a pipe break or clog and it's 10 at night and I'm not gonna sit in whatever I have to sit in until 8 in the morning, I'm gonna call the truck. And if it's there at 10 at night, then, I really don't care what my neighbors think because I gotta get my and who is gonna, if there's a Roto-Rooter truck in front of my house, I don't care what hour it is,
Who's gonna
what neighbor is going to call and say, "Oh my God, there's a Roto-Rooter truck"? Call the police. Call
I know
the
one.
ambulance,
I know one.
Well, I do too. But let's not go there. But and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
from what Councilor Hill said, this sounds like something that could be, if you take out a building permit. So someone says there's Joe Smith's roofing truck in front of my house, and it takes the police a minute to call the building department and say, is there a permit taken out for this house? And they say yes. Then they know the truck's supposed to be there. It sounds like instead of reinventing the wheel and making these people go to the police station or register with the police, like someone said, it's very cumbersome. We're being over officious here, I think.
Yeah, I think we're trying to delineate between two different issues. One is somebody doing a temporary job versus somebody who's keeping a vehicle at their residence. Those are two different things in my mind. I
I would agree.
don't want to make it more difficult for a tradesman doing a job in the town at someone's house. You know, if Roto-Rooter's at your house at 10 p.m., they're not there every night at 10 p.m. They're there for, you know, a temporary instance. So I think we need to separate these two, and the way that that reads, I think that we're just causing a lot of just extra work, and I'm sure Chief would probably not want that. So we maybe got to rethink that language and figure out how we're going to make that make more sense.
Maybe it's changing the hours, you know, but nobody can guess how long a contractor is going to be there working on a specific task. Like I said, such as a roof or siding, where they're there numerous days. And again, I mean, I spent some time at the police department, you know, talking about this, and they're not looking to go out and look for commercial vehicles that are providing a service. They're looking to deal with
A nuisance,
the offenders
right.
that's not, you know, corresponding with the appropriate bylaw, so.
I mean, there has to be, as you said, there has to be a balance. I think, you know, obviously when the people, the tradesmen doing work, they don't know a finite amount of time it's gonna take to get the work done. But at the same time, one of the things that the police do, and I've seen it, is if there's a vehicle, whether it's in a commercial spot or whatever, that looks, in their opinion, suspicious, they don't know what the purpose is, and unfortunately, we live in this era where you don't know, if you can't recognize, you know, I mean, it might be as simple as running the place to see if it's legit. Why is this van in this school parking lot? Why is this van in this commercial parking lot, or even on this residential street? So there has to be something where a police officer can do his or her job in terms of protecting the community from vehicles that perhaps nefarious individuals may or may not be using, or people that are violating, you know, business zoning rules and are using vehicles for additional at-home storage that aren't, you know, as opposed to having it at work. So there's you know, there has to be some type of balance in there. I mean, some of it is how, I mean, you're in the police, how quickly can somebody like the police run a plate? Does that take a while? Do you have to have a cause to run a plate, or?
15 seconds.
15 seconds? So if you see something, you'll say, what is this person doing there? And that probably gives you cause to be able to say why, what's over there.
I think that the 1 hour, I mean, what I would think needs more consideration is an hour. I don't think an hour is enough time to do anything, you
Yeah.
know? And it's just, I'm trying to explain, we're all trying to explain to Jim, I mean, what the intent is here, so that something is written that's appropriate to the offense, not be, you know, make it more difficult for the police, the resident, or the contractor.
Can I make a suggestion, is maybe that we table this, we're a little behind, there's a couple public hearings, and then we can try to tweak that language before we, you know, vote on that.
Before you, just to help, if you're going to table this and move forward with it, one of the things you might want to consider doing, if the notification of the police and the hour or the length of time that they're parked there is an issue, perhaps you could consider in the future, when you reconsider this, deleting the language that says, at the end of those 3 sections, it says, for more than 1 hour without the written approval of a police officer. And that prohibits the parking of commercial vehicles except for the making of repairs or other purposes that are already permitted under the rules and regulations. And so then you would need a complaint from someone to say this truck is here inappropriately, and then the police would come out to see if there's if they're there appropriately to make a repair or to do something, and then issue a ticket. So that might be something you want to consider as a way to address this.
Okay.
So that being said, it would have to be rewritten, you'd rewrite that and then put it back in front of us, or is that
If
something?
that's,
it's
if
not
that were the
something we're gonna-
council's wish, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I think so.
okay. All right, sounds good.
Sure.
So, again, under new business, number 2 is request from John Grimaldi for amendment to zoning bylaw 3.092, garaging or parking of commercial vehicles.
Do we have to take this out?
Joe, do you have that motion?
No, he's been sitting here the whole meeting, so I wouldn't want to sit through 3 public hearings. I don't know,
I know. So we're going to delay the public meetings? Is that okay?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah?
I think it's fine.
As long as you don't do it sooner.
Yeah, you do it later.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think we have to read this. I think this is just
We don't have to read.
open for discussion purposes only.
Okay.
Yep.
Don, I would just ask that you were probably acting on the planning board at some point in time when this bylaw was put in place, and it kind of coincides with the subject that we're talking about prior.
Yeah, I mean, basically, my understanding is what the petitioner wants is to, where's the petitioner here? Oh, right over here? Okay. Is that he wants to be able to put his vehicle within the same parameter size as in the driveway without having to worry about being quote-unquote hassled by the town or enforcement and things of that nature. Right, and things of that nature. Just to give the people a little bit of update, we had a situation, I wish I could remember how many years back, remember when Elsbeth was created? We have a few Elsbeth people here. What happened was, we had a building inspector, and he had to have some leave. And in the interim, another building inspector came in and saw a stack of complaints about tradesmen having businesses in the town of East Long Meadow, trucks and so forth, and storage and all that. So, and started enforcing those laws that, even though they've been on the books, were never enforced. A group of those adversely affected by the building inspector's enforcement called a special town meeting, and included within that special town meeting, I think it was in October, a bylaw that would have negated it. That was a relatively poorly attended town meeting. It was happened to be around the time that a local sports team, I think the Red Sox, were in the playoffs, and the majority of the people there were members who were supporting that particular proposition. The draft of the proposition was an abomination, and I said it then, I said it now. It was something that said that, you know, you could have basically, the unintended consequence, you could have put commercial buildings in any 1 acre piece in East Long Meadow. I'm dating myself, I'm off a little bit. Anyway, to cut to the chase, I spoke as chairman of the planning board at that time and before the group and said, I give you the word of the planning board that by the Maytown meeting, we will have a satisfactory bylaw that will not have this unintended consequence. There were people in the crowd that were saying, no, no, do it anyway, you can always fix it, but of course, that would have created a grandfathering situation. I could have built a quick mart right next to me in my house, you know, where I live. And I said, no, so they acquiesced, and we as, you know, as a town, as a planning board, worked with this newly formed group called ELSPA, and a lot of the original founders I happen to see are right in this crowd right now, and put together a bylaw to address that those specifically grieved people. It was not to be going into ad perpetuity that businesses moving in the year 2015 or 16 would have the same benefits of a consequence of a poorly enforced or lack of enforced bylaw. So we required special permits, site plans, and so forth for a number of businesses that are working and blending well with the community even today. In fact, so much so that I think even ELSPA is no longer having regular meetings, correct me if I'm wrong. So one of the concerns that the town had is to make sure that people were not using commercial vehicles in their neighborhoods. Now, we cannot speak to some of the neighborhoods that have zoning, have deed restrictions contained within. This proposition, if you live in one of those communities, just like living in a condominium, that supersedes. You have to follow those rules. That's something you got when you bought into that subdivision. But what we can address is for streets like Lee and other communities to see whether it's fair for a person who is taking a commercial vehicle of a certain size within the laws, within the current bylaw, and to say whether those vehicle can stay on the property. And I think my thinking of it is the question is of trying to put down some fair parameters where we avoid two things. The first thing we want to avoid is that it becomes a billboard advertising for this business, whereas the vehicles merely sit there, and people driving down a busy street see all this advertising for so-and-so plumbing and heating, so-and-so whatever, and that car basically sits there, and they use the protections of the reform bylaw and end up driving their own car and so forth. The other thing I think we want to be concerned about is that we have businesses that are growing, and it's awesome, it's a great thing to be growing, and they cannot support within the four corners of their parking lot commercial vehicles. So they have employees, directors, members, whatever, of their place and say, hey, can you store some of my extra cars in your parking lot? The town can't do a thing because of that. So I think those are some of the two things that leapt out in my mind, which again, we're using the term unintended consequences, and how can we address it? So that's just my 2 cents at the moment.
Can I ask you a question? How many complaints do you get a year?
Could you please state your name and address, please?
John Grimaldi, 102 Lee Street. Been here since '86. How many complaints do you get a year about a vehicle parked in the yard? I mean, you said you had a stack of vehicle
To
complaints,
address
Mike.
your first comment, when you were saying earlier, you have people pulling up in your driveway and taking pictures of your vehicle?
No, it's the town, the building inspector, he takes the
Okay,
picture.
well, he's probably doing that because the way the bylaw is currently written, you're in violation of the bylaw.
He was doing it because there was a complaint.
Because of what?
There was a complaint.
Oh, okay, well,
All right.
they're complaining because of the bylaw, then
Yeah,
there's
but
a bylaw
who are
in
you
place,
servicing? Who are you
correct?
servicing? One person, 5 people? I
No,
mean,
we're-
I mean,
Well, it's meant for everyone, and the way the bylaw was written, if I remember correctly, was that people had the choice. You could put that vehicle, that commercial vehicle, in your garage or
It won't
behind
fit.
your garage, or plant shrubs or put up a fence,
I
anything.
just want to park in my driveway. Mike, I got a petition, 91 signatures, right?
Uh-huh.
3 people said no out of the people we asked. 3 people. They all saying, they said, yes, no problem. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think that's probably the way the whole town is. I mean, how many complaints do you get a year? Does anybody know?
Well-
The complaints go to the building
We need somebody from the
building
building
inspector, it doesn't go to the
department
town council.
But
No, I
the
get a
bottom
lot.
line is currently it's a bylaw right now.
I know, I wanna
And
change
they're doing their job. I mean, they're you know,
I don't care
corresponding
about
to
the
bylaw.
complaints. I want to change it.
So
Why
you
can't
want
I
to
park
change,
in my
right.
yard? I
In
want to
order
park
for you
in my
to change
driveway.
it, we would
That's all.
have to put it back in front of the planning board to make a zone change to that bylaw. I'm not in favor of changing the bylaw at this point in time.
I'd want to hear from the building commissioner how many active complaints he's had since he's come on board, which is since July, maybe, April?
Look,
He's
I've
only-
talked to him. This one guy goes around, he has nothing better to do, takes
Yeah.
pictures, sends it to him. You know who he is.
We're aware
I
of
mean-
that, yes.
Everybody on my street has a truck, just because it doesn't have a commercial plate, still a truck. I mean, what do you oppose, my commercial plate or my truck? I don't know what you're even opposing.
I mean, Don was
I
the
think
only one.
basically, I think what we should do is maybe hear you out. I personally, I don't want to squash this. I think we should have a future meeting here and bring in invite the building inspector in here and to find out, your situation and open it up to the public. Because this is not a public hearing right now. We have a lot of people, and it's very easy because we're having this dialogue at the moment, but it is not posted as a public hearing, so we cannot take comments from the public on this matter. But perhaps we can have a future meeting, ask the building inspector to come in, hopefully you show up, perhaps have other people that have been giving the town notice to speak, and have that, and then have this discussion, and find out where it can work. Like I said, I can hear where you're saying. You run a painting business?
Yes,
Okay, you run a painting business, and over there, and you have one vehicle,
right?
correct? And the vehicle is slightly larger than your garage.
Yeah, I won't fit in the garage.
It's just, not just like by this much, by.
It's not going to go in. I don't want to park in my backyard. I spent a fortune on my lawn. I want to drive on my lawn every day. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I understand. And so the question's gonna be how do we create a bylaw that can, if we want to, as I said, and I'm not speaking for the council, I'm speaking for myself, is to open up the discussion, because you're asking us questions that the zoning enforcement
Yeah.
officer can answer. All right, and remember, the zoning enforcement officer just took over a few months ago. So there's not a long history with experience that the zoning enforcement officer has. you know, with this town, because, you know, the history was before. And as I mentioned, years ago, when Ellsworth was created, we did have a situation where this bylaw was not enforced at all. And
I've
it
been
went-
here since '86. I mean, now you're bothering me? I'm gonna retire soon.
Okay. But I'm saying, you can see what our position is well. You can have businesses that want to come in, and they're going to say, hey, you know what, can I park my vehicle there? I want to park a vehicle advertising my trade. You're in a beautiful location on Lee. I want to park it right here.
I don't know.
How
you
do
really
we
see
stop that?
You really see that
What
anywhere?
we
I
do,
don't see
what
it.
we do see are a number of signs that are going up that don't have sign approvals, and we do see that. People, you know, try to find, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. They want to find ways to market their businesses, and they'll put up creative signs in place. You'll see it on telephone poles. You'll see it other things, advertising the tax sale or what have you. But my point is that you can't open it up totally. If it can be opened up to a vehicle that is owned by the owner of the house, but then how do we become unfair to somebody that works for, say, John Mayberry? I mean, you know, and somebody comes in and says, hey, one of my best employees, you know, that's his vehicle or her vehicle driving to the house. Then that bylaw wouldn't work, because you have a person that owns a house, but the vehicle is registered to Mayberry. You know? So I'm just saying, it's not as simple, as you pointed out. Are we doing this for one person or not? We're not changing this bylaw, no disrespect, just for you.
No.
We want a bylaw that makes sense for the town after weighing the pros and the cons. And I think you can respect that.
I'd like to just share one complaint that I had. I mean, somebody brings home a diesel truck. They get up at 5:30 in the morning. They start that diesel truck. It runs for an hour and a half in their driveway. The neighbor next door is retired. And this is a real story. This is, you know, a resident in town. That truck's running for an hour and a half every single morning, 5 days a week. They're trying to sleep. They're saying, can you get that truck out of here? So what we're ruling on tonight at this point in time is a bylaw that's in place. What you're looking to do is make a change to the bylaw. And I think everyone here is open. We're open to listen to any kind of constructive criticism.
But Mike,
you know?
anybody can have a diesel truck. It doesn't have to be a commercial
Yeah,
truck.
I know. I'm just saying.
You're gonna
this
make
is-
laws against
We're the
diesel
complaint
trucks?
department. We're the ones that are getting the complaints.
Anybody's gonna have a diesel
And
one. A
it's-
person can own a diesel, doesn't have to be.
Right.
Maybe that was a
So
poor
it's not a
example.
good example.
You know. But
See,
a
that's
vehicle,
right.
in this
See,
case,
that's
I'm
right.
stating,
Make one
I'm
comment.
stating a real complaint. It was a diesel
No,
truck
Well,
that
I
made a
guess we
lot of
don't have
noise.
diesel
you know?
trucks anymore. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't ban everything.
So,
See, as my name was brought up, and I make a statement.
He's gonna come to the table.
sure, if you could come to the front, John, and just state your name and address, please.
So, John Mayberry, 60-year resident, 42-year business owner, town of East Long Meadow. Just as a point of information, I have over 40 vehicles that my employees drive home that do have lettering on it, so when I go to my customers, they realize which supplier is in their parking lot working on their equipment. And East Long Meadow, my hometown, is the only town that my employees can't park in their driveway. So I just wanted you to have that as a point of information. It's kind of sad that we have people who can earn a living and go out and do good things, trades, and be productive, and the town of East Long Meadow says you can't drive that vehicle home and park it in your parking lot. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And
Welcome.
again, that just supports, I think, the idea is to keep the dialogue open and not to, is to discuss this, but also understand and be mindful of unintended consequences, because I mentioned two examples. I mentioned John Mayberry.
Consequences, but leave it.
And I mentioned John Mayberry, and I also mentioned the petitioner. And I said, you know, not everybody owns the vehicle.
Exactly.
Or you could have a vehicle that you own and it's licensed under your painting company, not you as an individual. But at the same time, we have to come up with a bylaw, if we're gonna change it, to avoid the unintended consequences, because believe you me, there will be. We see it sometimes, we drive by parking lots, and you'll see pretty much a billboard of a van just parked there every day in the same spot.
Parking lots aren't in residence.
I'm just using that as an example, because you can't do that, but you know what I'm saying.
Great.
Joe, do you have any
We're going to
comments?
continue talking about this.
Nothing.
I'm good.
Tom,
I think
Kathy,
we're all
everyone's
I
good?
think we're open to some more debate on it.
Okay. All right, so where are we on the public hearing? Okay, our first public hearing is a continuation of a public hearing for a proposal for the liquor license authority and permitting granting authorities of the town to deny or revoke any local license or permit who has been neglected to pay any municipal charges and is not in compliance with the state building code, sanitary code, or town bylaws, including all health, fire, and police and building codes. This is a second reading.
Point of order. Mr. Chairman, before second reading, our charter clearly states that this has to, the entire bylaw has to go into a newspaper and be printed and posted on the website before a second reading can happen.
Okay.
If you'd like, I'd be
Would you
more
please,
than...
Ralph, I know we know who you are, but could you please state your name and address?
Sure, Ralph Page, 306 Prospect Street.
Thank you.
And I'm talking about the East Long Meadow, Town of East Long Meadow Home Rule Charter. It's Chapter 2, Section 6. Any proposed bylaw shall be published in a local newspaper, on the town bulletin board, and on the town's website or other official online repository municipal information, whether on the internet or accessed through another comparable technology, not less than 7 days prior to its second reading, except for an emergency bylaw. So before a second reading, I would ask that these bylaws be published in the newspaper and be put on the town's website.
Tom, if I understand correctly, it doesn't have to specifically be a newspaper. I thought the internet would be sufficient for posting the public notice.
I
And
haven't looked at that issue specifically to answer that question.
Yeah.
But publication to the general public is what's required, but it has to be published once before you take your second hearing.
yeah, this isn't the first,
Has to be
you
before
know,
the
second
This isn't a
excuse me
public-
for a second. This isn't the first, second reading of a public hearing that we've had. Have we published any of the other ones in the newspaper?
Well, they've been posted on the website.
Right.
and on the bulletin.
Which,
they're in the
and I
file.
believe we addressed that, and this might have been in the summer, where a second reading, like, we had the article on the website, correct? Just trying to, I'm sorry, I'm a little fuzzy on the last couple that we've done, but,
Yeah, the whole point of your conversation really
Have
is
these
not
been
to
posted on
open
the
this
website?
public hearing tonight, because you
It's
feel
just to
that we're...
continue it until, it's the actual bylaw
Okay, so,
that has to be
so
in the
rather than
paper.
getting into the specifics, right now, the point is, do we open a public hearing or not? And I would ask Jim, is there any validity to what he's saying? Or can we open this public
You
hearing?
can open it
Tom.
and continue it to the 23rd.
Hey,
Just continue it, this grandstanding
Has this
is
bylaw been,
ridiculous.
the bylaw itself been
Actually, I
put on
don't
the
think
town
it's
website?
I think it is.
It's on
Well,
the-
it's
it's
not.
on the
hold on,
website.
guys,
Oh, wait a minute,
guys,
time out.
seriously, stop.
Has this bylaw been
Let's
posted?
let Jim just take a quick look at this.
Well, no, but I'm asking Tom a question about, has this bylaw been put on the town website, the whole bylaw itself, or just a hearing notice?
It doesn't require that it be published in a newspaper, it only requires that it be published in some official online repository or some other function that's there. So if it's been put onto the website already or onto the internet as part of an official record by the clerk, then the publication is sufficient to comply with the requirements of the charter. I don't know whether that's been done or not.
Well, that's what, I guess that's what
That's what we're trying to find out.
Paul's asking. Are we 100% sure that this was put onto
I'm trying
the
to find
website?
it.
Do we want to continue the public hearing?
And it's not just a notice of it, it's the actual.
Yes,
The actual-
no, that,
we
yeah,
understand
because
that,
we,
yeah.
this is not the first one we've done
Right.
in a year and a half.
Yeah, I've done others, this particular one, I can say I don't believe it's not been on the website.
Okay.
Wait a minute,
Which-
you don't believe it's not been on the website, or it
is
has
not-
been on the
It has not
website?
been posted to the website.
Okay.
So if that's the case, we
So
can
that-
open the
that
meeting
doesn't-
and continue
Yeah,
it to
we'll
the
continue. Yeah,
23rd.
that's fine.
And I
Okay,
will
very
post it
good,
on the website.
fair enough.
Okay, so we need a motion to have this public
Yeah.
hearing continue.
I'd ask for a motion to, delay this publication, this public hearing till, was it the 23rd?
23rd.
January 23rd?
Will that be enough
In
time
which
to be
ca-
able to have it 7 days in advance?
That's, yeah,
It's 14.
yeah,
Okay.
to make sure that it's properly posted.
As a matter of fact, both of them, this
Yes.
one and the next one, so. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So we also, to Paul's point, we're delaying the
The
next,
641 also. Because I don't believe that's been posted either. Or-
none of those are online.
I,
My computer crashed.
yeah, I mean,
You don't see them?
I don't,
I'm guessing if this one
perhaps I
wasn't,
could be
the next
looking in the
one was.
wrong spots for these things, because
No, but
typically,
Tom said they weren't.
yeah, they weren't, the
So,
next one wasn't
we-
either, so, all right.
Beating a dead horse here.
I'm gonna give this right to you.
Oh, sorry.
You're reading it, we're
I
gonna
thought
do
you
the
was
same thing,
talking about that one. My
All
bad.
right.
No, no, it's-
because we have that 7-day rule.
So,
Did the motion, Joe, that you put on the table cover both these public hearings, or
I
was
I
it?
think
I
we really
didn't.
have to open both up and
Yeah.
and continue because of the time, and is it, the other one is at 7 o'clock, right?
No,
No, the next one's 6:40,
6:45. Oh, yeah,
which
we
we're
have the
behind
time.
anyhow.
I think to do it, we should do each one à la carte.
Yeah, so 9B is what we're talking
So
about
we're
now.
looking for a
So
motion
I
to
can
continue 9B.
propose a motion to continue, for the continuation of the public hearing for the proposed bylaw. Amendment to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 57 regarding license and permit denials by charging existing language on overdue municipal charges from 12 months to 6 months.
Second?
Second, just a couple points on it, just to make sure, just to do everything technically by the book. The first motion, when we continue, it has to be continued to not only a date, but a time. So it's gonna be held here and same time. Do we wanna do that? So that anyone who's here knows that.
6:30 and 6:40.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't know if we have to modify the previous motion again, or just to make sure we put the time of the hearing.
If you want.
But on this one, since this motion's on the floor right now, I will amend the motion to, what time is this one supposed to be, what, 6:40?
6:40.
6:40?
Yep.
That, to the 23rd at 6:40 PM here in the Council on Aging room. So,
Okay, that being said, we'll move to C, public hearing for zoning map amendment to rezone parcel 1838-0330 Chestnut Street for Industrial Garden Park District.
No, we never took a
We
vote on
Sorry,
that.
We haven't
sorry,
voted
We
on
never
the
took a
other
vote
one.
on the continuance.
Okay.
It's okay.
We're right by it.
Sorry.
All right, so,
All in
If
favor?
Don's
Is that
motion's
motion
gonna be
on the-
seconded.
So,
Yes.
do we have to second the amendment? The amended, I second the amendment.
okay, all in favor, I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Now the main motion. I'll make a motion to support the continuation with the approved amendment till January 23rd, 6:40 for the proposed bylaw amendment to Mass General, per Mass General Laws 4057, which was item B.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I make another motion that the motion that was approved for the continuation of the public hearing under item 9A, that the for the proposal of the liquor license authority permit granting deny or revoke license, that which we voted on the 23rd, that be held at 6:30 PM here in the Council on Aging.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. Now we're back
So
on
we're
track.
ready for C. Okay.
Yes.
This is a public hearing for a zoning map amendment to rezone parcel 18-38-0330 Chestnut Street for Industrial Garden Park District to a mixed-use district. 6:45 is the time, so we're in compliance with that. If I can introduce the council members, we have Tom O'Connor, Paul Federici, Joe Ford, Don Anderson, Kathy Hill, and myself, Mike Kane. So in a minute here, we're going to open a public hearing, and I'm stating this for those of you that aren't used to attending public hearings. The applicant will then present his scenario to the council. All parties need to address the president and not each other after the public meeting. After the public has addressed the council, we'll then close the meeting. At that time, the council members will discuss the matters pertinent to the plan and take a vote. That being said, I'll open a public hearing, and Tom, could you read the notice, please?
Sure, the East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on January 9th, 2018 at 6:45 PM in the meeting room of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address the zoning map amendment to rezone parcel 1838-0, 330 Chestnut Street from Industrial Garden Park District to Mixed Use District. Information related to the amendment is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
For the record, could you please?
George Kingston, 66 Rural Lane, East Long Meadow.
Thank you.
Chairman of the East Long Meadow Planning Board. Since the council has not yet heard the change in the zoning bylaw that would create the district, I would recommend highly that this hearing be continued until you've had a chance to advertise and open the hearing for the actually creating the district, because it's not really possible to assign a parcel to a district that doesn't exist yet.
Right now, it's a garden district, and we're looking for a mixed use, correct?
Right, and a bylaw was recommended by the planning board back in November, but for some reason it never got acted on by the council. So I would recommend, the town clerk is aware of this, that if we can get the actual bylaw advertised in time for the 23rd, then you could hear that and then hear this at the same time, if you will. But it really doesn't make sense to talk about assigning a parcel to a district that doesn't exist yet. And I know it's confusing, and I apologize if the planning board had anything to do with it, but rather than confuse it further, that's my recommendation.
Yeah, and George, that makes sense, but, so it never came before us, right? I've never seen it.
No,
No, it hasn't.
No.
It hasn't.
So
It was, yeah, I don't want to get into the
That's why we're
details of
here.
it, but it never happened. Okay.
And part of that information, will there be a description of what a mixed-use district will be?
That's been sent to the town clerk. He has that. That's what you need to vote on first,
Right.
is what the mixed-use district is and the various criteria that go with it.
Okay.
Okay, and once you, if you approve that, then you can assign a particular parcel to that district.
So will we be able to act on that and then have a discussion that same night, or is this gonna push?
Well, that could count as the first reading for both of them, and then you can do the second reading whenever you do it for the both
First
of them.
meeting in February?
Yeah.
And Mr. Kingston, you're entirely clear that all of the work the planning board needs to do for us to do our job is done
Yes.
at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
It has been forwarded to you. There may be one amendment that we will ask of you. It's a technical thing having to do with the numbering of the sections, because of the way the zoning bylaw is currently numbered. There's a little bit of confusion on the numbering, so we may submit a technical amendment for you to consider to it, to just change the number on one of the paragraphs. Okay, it's a really niggly thing, but we got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the substance of it that you have now is the substance that we're recommending. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you,
Yes,
George. Just 1 minute, please. Tom, can you elaborate on
Yeah, I just
what
wanted
Tom is
to,
asking? And
right,
then we'll let the applicant.
yeah, I have been in contact with George, and, you know, the mixed-use district obviously must be created before voting on the zoning map amendment. And our goal is to do that simultaneously, as Joe said, to use February 13th as the first reading, and then February 27th advertised as the second reading, and maybe have the bylaw finalized for both after the February 27th council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Frank Fitzgerald. I'm the attorney for the petitioner, and we're in full agreement with that change in the date, and we want to make sure that the meetings are properly noticed and that this council gets an opportunity to fully vet this important project. And maybe we could, if there's some special way that you would like this special presentation or way that you would like this to be brought before you, we'd be happy to hear from you in that regard. The principals are here tonight as well, and we would expect to come back on the 13th with a presentation, a detailed discussion of the district. As you pointed out, there's a document, a text
that contains all of the necessary information regarding what the district, mixed-use district would be able to do, what the uses would be, and then subsequent to that, we can have you hear the issue of changing the zoning map for 330 Chestnut Street to be eligible to construct the project in that district.
Very good. Sounds good. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public if there's any discussion? Would anyone from the public care to comment on what's taken place? No? No? So, is there a motion in order to continue the public hearing?
So we're going to the first meeting of December,
Just
February
13th.
13th.
February 13th. So I'd like to propose a motion to continue the public hearing for the zoning map amendment to rezone parcels 1838-0, 330 Chestnut Street from today to February 13th, our February 13th meeting at 6:45 p.m.
Perfect.
So moved.
Second.
Do we want it any sooner than 6:45?
No.
Then we have the other.
Let's get the others.
Well, the other ones are the 23rd.
Yeah, the other ones are
Oh,
the
that's
23rd, so I mean, so we're gonna have, we could, you know, let's say we have a soft
Do
agenda that
6:30.
day.
Do 6:30.
Well, we never have that soft an agenda. At least we haven't in a year and a half.
They'll be here, they don't have to wait as long.
How about
We get it sooner.
6:30?
6:30.
6:30 is good.
All right,
Say
6:30?
6:30.
All right, fine, because that's the motion, then it's still within the same motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so our last public hearing for the alteration of a licensed premises and change of hours for Gunther Rowley Post 293 American Legion, Inc. And we're within the time frame. I'm right along, right?
Yep.
So. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Roger Kelman, Finance Officer of the Post 293. Also here tonight is Michael Flynn, another Post member, and the bar manager.
Excuse me for just one moment, please.
Oh,
Could I-
I'm sorry.
I'm
Yes.
just going to have, you already have been addressed, you know who the council members are, but if we can read the notice, then that would be great.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on January 9th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the meeting room at the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address the alteration of the licensed premises for Gunther Rowley Post 293 American Legion Incorporated. Information related to this change is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you can continue.
That's fine, thank you. So the American Legion Post was chartered in 1930 in East Long Meadow, and we've been here ever since. We have approximately 150 members that come from all branches of the military and from World War II up to the present conflicts. We've owned the post facility at 3 Legion Court since 1941. When the building was donated to us, it was moved across the street to its current location. We put an addition on in 1947. The first floor includes our main meeting room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. The basement has our bar and recreation area, and the second floor is a taxable rental apartment that we have right now. All of these uses have been in existence for as long as most of the Post members have been around. The bar operates under a club license with all of our volunteer bartenders tip certified. The details of the requested changes or modifications of the current license were detailed in the application package, and I was going to just kind of quickly go over what those changes are. The main request, I think, is to modify the description of the described premises to include an outdoor patio area of about 420 square feet. It's an existing patio area. We have a bench, a picnic table, and a grill. And this area is used during the warmer months. We have every Thursday we have a barbecue, and then occasionally we use it for special events. We would like to include that outdoor seating area as part of the licensed premises. So that's one specific change that we're requesting. The other changes as far as the description of the licensed premises, right now it states that the building is a two-family house, and in fact it is a two-story wood structure. So we would like it to better reflect the description of the premises. We're also proposing, we've made some more accurate measurements of the square footages, so we'd just like to have the license reflect the most accurate square footages of the different premises areas. With respect to the regulations that are applicable to this license, would like to make a number of changes. Right now, it says, as far as people that can be served at the bar, it says wives of members. Would like to change that to spouses of members. We'd also like to add Sons of the American Legion as people that can be served at the bar. The Sons of the American Legion are part of the official American Legion family, which includes auxiliary and, for some locations, a rider's post. Would also like to clarify that members may bring guests. I think it's somewhat implied, and it's been the case in the past, but there is a clarification of the wording that guests of members may also be served at the bar. There are some restrictions on those guests, including that each member can only have 3 guests, and they have to be signed in. We're not suggesting any change to that requirement. The other change we'd like to make, we hold occasional dinners and special events where we invite the public. We try and have monthly dinners. What we would like to do is to clarify that these members of the public can be served at the bar, not as guests of individual Post members, but as general guests of the Post. And therefore, they wouldn't have to fall under the limitation of 3 per and be signed in and have to be there with a member, which applies to regular guests. Finally, the last change is to specifically include Saturdays. For some reason, Saturdays is not listed in our regulations, and we have been operating and have the bar open on Saturdays. And we would make the hours from noon to the new cutoff time of 1 a.m. So those are the specific changes that we've suggested, and we're available to answer any questions from the council or the public.
Okay, at this point in time, I'd ask, are there any comments from the public? No. Do we have any?
I do have one question. So when you have a kind of like a general open house and the public comes and they're not signed in by a particular guest, does your liquor license not cover them if they're not? So
I would say that it is unclear. I think the intention is to allow, again, if we invite members, and maybe we'll get 6 or 7 members of the public that will come to a dinner, that they can be served at the bar without being signed in, in other words, they would be guests of the Post, as opposed to guests of individual members.
Right. Jim?
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did, and I guess I was just asked Jim for a take on that.
These questions, we know prior knowledge that they're going to come up, but my understanding of the club licenses is that that's exactly what they are. That members of the organization and their guests are allowed to be served, but that members of the public are not able to just walk in and purchase an alcoholic drink if they want. And that's the intent. It's not to turn these clubs into public facilities, but that they're club and member benefited. So I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm not sure that a club license for the VFW or the Veterans of Foreign Wars or Knights of Columbus or whatever you may have that has a liquor license are entitled to have members of the public just be able to walk in and purchase alcoholic beverages.
Well, I think what we're suggesting is that it wouldn't just be the public walking in. These would be for posted events. And I think there is a section, and I'm not sure where I read it, that requires notice to the council. I believe it's 7 days prior to one of these kind of public events. But again, these would be, we advertise it in, that we're having a St. Patrick's Day dinner. And we have been inviting the public. It's a way of kind of having some outreach to other veterans in the area, and it's also a way of developing community involvement between the veterans in the post and the general public. Part of what we would like to do is to have a kind of a presence in the public to promote patriotism and other American values.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're trying to get.
No, and I appreciate you guys trying to clarify this and do it the right way. Is it, in preparing for this, and that's why I'm asking, I was a little confused, is the difference of a club license. Somebody that has a club license, can they apply for a special one-day permit? Would that just...
They wouldn't get it.
Okay, so that's not a possibility. So we have to clarify the issue of the general public.
I think you really need to determine whether, under the existing alcoholic beverage control rules and regulations, it's permissible for a club license to allow the public to come to an event and be served alcohol. They can come to the event to be served food and use the facilities, but the alcohol issue is another matter. I don't know the answer to that at this point in time.
Okay.
Currently, does the club afford people the opportunity to smoke inside because it's a private club, or cigars?
No.
Of that nature?
No. And again, I think what we're suggesting is that this would, it's somewhere between the general public and a guest. In other words, they are being invited in to a specific event, being invited by the Post as a general guest. So I think that's how we're trying to approach the being in conformance with the state regulations and the town's regulations. And it seems to me that the town has quite a bit of flexibility in the writing of the regulations applicable to the specific license. We can certainly explore with the ABCC in a little bit more detail how they would view this.
It's how they interpret the ability to use a club. Because the licensing of alcoholic beverages, as the council knows, is a dual function in the state.
Right.
Locally approved, but it has to conform to the ABCC requirement. And the whole structure of the liquor licenses in the state have changed drastically in the last 7 or 8 years with the expansion of different things. So, and I haven't dealt with this issue as legal counsel for any community that I represent in the recent past. So I don't know if those rules or regulations have changed, but I can check and find out and report back to the council whether this is an issue. The concern, I think, is that just a carte blanche to say if Jim Donahue wants to come into the VFW and buy a beer,
no,
I don't have the right to do that.
No.
I can come in as your guest.
Right.
And as your guest, I can purchase a beer. So the structure is, where does the line fall? And I can't answer that for council tonight.
Which reminds me that part of this process, assuming that the town approves our request, it goes to the ABCC. In fact, I included as part of the package, I believe, that went to the clerk, a copy of our application to the state. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe I sent the state a copy of, or that's part of the package. So there will be the review by the ABCC as part of this process. I felt that the first step really was the local input.
I feel it's a great safety net having the ABC
Yes.
there. I don't know how everyone else feels, but.
I mean, my level of comfort is fine with everything except for the open event where members may not necessarily be there in theory. I don't have a problem with having the 3 guests per person and so forth. However, because the thing is, like you heard the theme I'm speaking tonight is unintended consequences. Now we're going to get, we might get the Knights of Columbus, we might get the Masonic Temple, and say, wow, what a brilliant idea. We'll have Valentine's nights, we'll have these kind of nights, and not a single Mason will be there and over there, but not open to, not one that fosters the organization to be there, but to open it up to new people outside. So I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that we don't have an innocent unintended consequence.
The events that we invite the public to are events that are, we put on the dinner, it's our
Right.
volunteers that put together the dinner, we do it as a fundraiser. So the majority of people at those events are members of the Post.
But I mean, all these events are gonna, I mean, any event's just gonna be like, card night for the public to come in and buy drinks and play cards or darts or things of that nature. I don't know.
That, I don't think we were thinking that. I think we
Yeah.
were thinking the dinners that we occasionally have, the monthly dinners, and then also, for instance, on the 4th of July after the parade, often, we'll say, public, please come down and see our Post and talk to the veterans. That would be another very specific event where it would be primarily Post members that would be there, but occasionally and hopefully we get some of the public that come in that can interact with the veterans.
And, I'm sorry,
No,
just
go
a quick
ahead.
point, and I very much get your point and what your intent is, and I think and I don't want to speak for Don, but it seems like we're thinking on the same way, that we're gonna make an approval for something that we're not sure is allowable, and then, your intended use is very occasional use, but maybe the next manager is not so occasional, and then it's much more frequent. So it just, I guess that's the only, everything else is very well thought out. You guys are obviously a great member of the community. I don't have a problem with anything else. I guess that's the one piece that I'm just not clear on, that if we give permission to that, and the other thing too is if we allow permission to that, and then the state says, no, that's not allowable anyhow, did we just allow something that, so now what happens then?
Can we do a compartmentalized approval where we approve everything but for that one section, pending, more comment from the ABCC council or something?
I have a recommendation.
Okay.
How about if, we put a motion on the floor to approve the alterations of the licensed premises contingent upon ABC's approval?
Well, we shouldn't have to limit the alterations to the approval. I mean, we may want to
Approve everything except for
limit
that one.
the use of the facility in that manner
the
until the
ABCC
ABCC approves it. But I don't
Okay.
see having limiting the alterations have nothing to do with the.
Do the alterations have anything to do with the way you want to reconduct?
Well, the alterations are really what we would do to improve the patio. We're asking to increase the described premises to include the patio area, the outdoor patio area.
Well, if you were denied from the ABCC, would you make improvements to that patio, or would you wait for the ABCC first?
No, we might. I think that one is fairly straightforward. I don't think there's any question about that. I do understand the issue of the public and how that plays out with the club license. And I'm not sure how best to resolve that with the ABCC.
We could find an answer.
That would be great.
Pardon?
That would be great.
We could find an answer.
Okay.
Jim, could you answer a question? A club license. Could I go into the Legion and say I want to hold an event there? I want to rent the facility under a club license.
You can't do it unless you're a member of the club.
Okay.
Or you're sponsored by a member of the club.
So if I'm a member of the club and I rent the facility, I can bring in as many people that aren't members of the club as I
Well,
can.
they're
as I
your
want.
guests.
But in their case, it's limited to 3 guests. So I don't understand what the difference is between what he's asking and and if I was doing that as a member, other than the fact it's a private event theoretically.
Well, I don't understand where.
He's saying if Paul brings in 100 people, he's one person, he technically by the rules can only bring in 3. But it's a
What you're
private
saying is
event.
I could
You're gonna
take
serve
the-
all 100 people alcohol.
Yeah, I could take the hall, use it as a member, and you may have an event there as a member and bring in a bunch of non-members, and that's okay.
My understanding of club licenses, and I'm not speaking for veterans of foreign wars or other veterans organizations, but that if you have a club license and you are bringing guests, you're not restricted. I don't know where the 3-member restriction comes from with respect to that.
That's self-imposed, that they've made that themselves.
That's their own
That's
limitation?
their, that's their rules.
self-governed.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's a different rule, that's their own situation.
I don't have my other file with me about all of the state. That might come from the state. That might be one of the general club restrictions as
That's
far
right,
as
that's
from the ABCC.
Let me suggest this to avoid answering questions that are coming up that we can't answer. I can look at the rules and the regulations that exist for club licenses under the ABCC and report back to you at your next meeting as to where you go with respect to that issue and get it resolved. I mean, it's not something that can't be handled, it just has to be done appropriately. As for the modifications to the building, whatever changes they want to make to the building that they feel they want to do, they go get their proper permits. If they're required to do it, they can do it. The only thing they come back to you for is, as the manager has asked, is to expand the premises to include the patio for the service of alcoholic beverages, which is not permitted at this point in time. They just want to expand it. So they do that. But the actual changes to the building don't have to come back to you for approval.
So then we could put a motion.
But what you should have them file with you is a plan that shows, if you don't have it, you may have it in the file, which shows the new patio, which shows the new area inside where the service is going to be, where the bars are, where the seating is going to be, so you have that to know what's going forward.
Yeah, is that right?
And we have been to the planning board, and we have a letter from the planning board basically approving it subject to building department, et cetera. Would it make sense to rescind that one aspect of the license change in order to proceed with the others, or is it better to try and resolve that and do this all at once?
Are you pressed for time? I mean, our next meeting is 2 weeks from today.
I think the usage issue is different from the physical changes to the structure.
So we approve the alterations.
Yeah, I think that's all we're voting on. I don't have a problem voting on the alteration of the
That's all it is.
premises.
That's
And
all
then,
it is.
and then we go out and we vote on this other matter.
Yeah.
You know, because to me, I'm thinking about like the vote we did today for Masonic Temple. They came in with this benevolent organization, we did a one-day license for them. All right? Now, if they came in and did the same thing, they really wouldn't have to get one-day licenses anymore, because they could just say, one of my members, you know, they could be putting a benevolent night or speaker night or something like that night, right? It kind of end runs the whole one-day license procedure.
But they can't serve alcohol unless they have a one-day
Well,
license.
you're planning on serving alcohol at your events, right?
But they have a full license.
Yeah, they have a club license.
They have a club
That's-
license. It's
And the
not-
Masonic Temple does not?
No, that's why,
Gotcha.
that's.
So we're a little-
You can't get a
little
special
different
license if you already have a.
And the KFCs, they have a full license?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
No more questions?
No? Is there a motion?
Questioned out.
We
Well,
put
we'll
up?
close the public hearing.
Yep.
And how about a motion to approve the alterations of the licensed premises for Gunther Rowley, Post 293, American Legion, Inc.?
Yeah, we're
So
just
moved.
and waiting on it, and we're gonna
No,
delay.
no,
contact.
no,
No, that's it.
no
That's it.
no
That's
amendment.
all- That's all they're asking for.
Yep.
Do you want me to read it again, or are we good?
No, no.
No, you're all
We're
set.
good?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank
to.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's
Next
see. Jim,
is-
do you have anything for us,
next
the
is-
executive session? Do you have anything for us regarding executive session? You do?
Okay.
Okay, could you make, could we have
I'll
a
make,
motion?
move to, let the council go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation, and returning to regular session only for the purpose of adjournment.
Perfect.
So moved?
Second.
Thirded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no, we gotta
That's a
do, we gotta
roll
do, we gotta do
Roll call.
Tom?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Kathy?
I
Aye.
believe it's supposed to be.
Aye.
Select, I mean, the counselor.
Yeah.